Initially, knowledge about climate change to me was paralyzing. I was educated at a young age. I remember reading scientific papers that I had seen floating around on like the social media sphere that seemed to foretell an apocalypse, but with academic terms. And so that paralyzed me. I felt completely disempowered to prevent this kind of global holocaust as a teenager without even a high school degree. Then I got invited to a city council meeting, which doesn't seem like a tremendously life-changing event, but I went to that city council meeting and it was on kind of the city equivalent of a Green New Deal support vote. And we went around and I gave my little 1-minute speech about how I'm scared and I need some level of action on any level of government. And I gave my speech. And then another person gave another speech after that, arguing for the same thing. And another person gave another speech. And their speeches often were better than mine, but they were about the same thing. And so when I left that meeting, I found myself surrounded by these peers and by these fellow community members who were just as scared as me, but also had found each other and were wanting to do something.
My name is Artemisio Romero y Carver, and I'm from Santa Fe, New Mexico. YUCCA, Youth United for Climate Crisis Action, is an entirely youth-led nonprofit created to hold elected officials accountable to the health of future generations and marginalized communities. As a co-founder and steering committee member, my role has been to plan, direct, and set messaging for all initiatives. As a policy director, I worked to set and achieve our policy goals and maintain and build our relationships with elected officials.
Our 5 major demands have always been about providing new sources of energy, if we're talking about community solar, if we're talking about economy transition, while at the same time acknowledging that the way that we've built our energy infrastructure in this country and arguably across this planet is not sustainable and is in fact lethal.
For young people, the scale of the crisis is very large, and I think there were definitely elders in our communities, other folks in our communities who understand it. But even when I talk to people younger than myself, it's even larger for them, right? I'm scared that I may never be able to live past 50. And I think part of what we have to understand is that climate change is not something that can be dealt with soon. It is something that has to be dealt with now. We talk about goals in the future, right? We talk about carbon neutrality by 2050. We talk about these ideas. And there were bills even in the session that sought to do that. And those are good, valuable things. But I also think that because we talk about these things in big timelines, it becomes easy to comprehend climate change as something that is going to happen and something that will cost. That's not true. It is happening. It has already cost human lives. And action needs to be taken by the time I finish saying this sentence.
I think young people understand climate change in a slightly different way than older generations. To us, it is more often part of the formative part of our lives, right? These huge environmental disasters are happening more often. And for younger people, they're becoming more primary to childhood and early adulthood. You know, I try to maintain hope. And I think that if we want to tell people that our system needs to change, we have to offer them alternatives. If our project is to achieve the goals that we hope it does, if YUCCA is to achieve its stated goals, we would hope that our state and our world would end their dependency on extractive industry and the violence and colonialism and murder and health risks associated with extractive industry. So I want to imagine a world where our foundation isn't that kind of evil, where you can turn on a light and you can know that that energy came from the sun, from the wind, and not from the involuntary sacrifice of entire communities. So to be clear, my hope for a better world is the abolition of fossil fuels.